post-screen Q&A. Without further ado, I'd love to bring up our guests for this Q&A, beginning with Mr. Santino Fontana, Mark L. Walberg, Ben Steinhauser, and our Emmy Award winner, Mr. Sheffield. And as these wonderful folks take their seats, I'm going to correct something I started out with earlier today. I unfortunately missed our co-director, Mr. Keith Gerchek, on the film, so shout out to Keith, and thank you so much to him for sharing the film with us. Another round of applause for this amazing crew right here. I will have the first round of questions, and then we'll leave a little bit of time, maybe 5 minutes or so, for any of your questions, audience, so please keep those in mind. Thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. I just want to start with, one, how this project came on any of your radars. You're all sort of at different points in your careers, and this is such a wonderful indie that has a lot of heart, has a lot of spirit behind it. I'd love to just give you an opportunity to talk about that and the sort of preparation to bring these characters to screen. Diane, you're closest to me. You want to start?
Yeah, cool, I'll start. So, for anyone that doesn't know, this is my very first film. And this all happened because I was on Kids Baking Championship, and the directors, Keith and Marissa, watched my season. They were like, we want him. So, because of the show, they knew like what town where I was, so they reached out to my principal, and my principal sent it to my mom, and then we just went through some Zoom calls and eventually made it to set. It was really just awesome.
Do the cooking, do the baking shows, whatever gets you to roll now. That's what's up. Jeff?
Oh, well, I had filmed, I was on Somebody Somewhere, and our first season had come out, and they offered it to me, and it was one of those things where it was like, I'm giving an offer. I'm in, baby. And they were like, read the script. And I was like, oh, okay. How fun.
That's before you were an Emmy winner.
Yeah.
I guess my turn. I met Keith and Marissa. I had hosted Antiques Roadshow, which obviously this is sort of an homage to, and they reached out to me early on in the process to see if I would come on board and be a part of it. And I said, sure, let me know if it, I'd love to be a part of it. Let me know if it becomes a movie, because you have to find funding and things like that. And so like a year or so went by, and I read the script, and I thought it was really charming and lovely, and and not a lot of people asked me to be in movies, so quite frankly, I would have said yes to anyone. But I liked this one, and I thought it was sweet. And then about a year and a half later, I get an email from someone I don't recognize saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm emailing you to arrange your travel to Cleveland. I said, for what? They said, the movie. I went, oh, so that became a thing. Now I said, I've committed to this movie, I have no idea who's in it, and what have I got myself into? So I sheepishly asked who's in the movie, and they started listing Martin Sheen, Stacey Keach, June Squibb, and on and on and on. I said, I'll take it, I'm in. So it worked out pretty good. Yeah, that's my story.
I think I got a text from Kevin McCollum, one of the producers, and then I got an email from Keith and Marissa, who I had never met, and they sent the script, and this is just after the pandemic, or kind of the peak of the pandemic, and I'd never played a part like this that I thought was really funny, and I said, and the same as what Mark just said, the cast was amazing, and I was like, great, we're going to Cleveland for 2 weeks, and why not? Yeah.
So I love the quote the film opens with. America has 3 cities, right? And everywhere else is Cleveland. the film has such a specificity of place to it, but it has so many universal aspects as well. And we'll get into some of those with some particular questions after each of you. But Santino, I'd love to start with you. Like, what did it mean to you to represent this place? Did you have any sort of prior connection to Cleveland? And how did the film maybe evolve your relationship with the city?
I'd never been to Cleveland, and funnily enough, after the trips for this film, and then I did a workshop of a play at Cleveland Playhouse like the following year. So it was like, wow, I'm really big in Cleveland, hot in Cleveland. I am from a small town, much smaller than Cleveland. I'm someone who can attest to that quote being not true, because there are places far, far, far worse than Cleveland. Cleveland is actually lovely. I was happy to get to represent small town America. That's where I'm from. And I went back actually again to sing at a Guardians game for the movie. And I've had a great time and great meals. And there's a place called Shaker's, what is it called? Lube? Shaker's Lube? No, that's what it's called. And I remember being like,
There's a child here.
I know, but it meant like, it doesn't, I'm gonna stop now. Anyway, I was very honored to be able to be a part of the small town representation. Sorry, Jeff.
Anyone else?
I am familiar with Shaker's Lube.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah. I've been to Cleveland many times. I think I was there with Antiques Roadshow. I've been there for other reasons. And I didn't know the reputation that preceded it, that is supposed to, like the quote says, like it's just, everywhere else is Cleveland. But in fact, that wasn't what I found at all. When we were there, it was snowing, it was cold, it was quintessential. We went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is not to be missed. The people were delightful and lovely. My wife and I went to dinner at Little Italy. They have a lovely little area there with a very traditional Italian bakery across the street. And I have to say that the entire trip I had was had everything a city needs, like all the things, and still had this very hometown kind of vibe that was specifically Cleveland. And since then, and having done the movie now, I've run into friends and family who are from Cleveland and start singing the praises like, oh, you have no idea. And they start telling me all the things about Cleveland that I need to know. So I'm glad the movie sort of represents it in that positive sense, because it really is a wonderful place.
Jeff, anything?
Well, I think that we can sometimes, because our culture and our media tells us that everything happens on the coasts, that we tend to think that anything that happens in the middle of the country is not interesting or hot or exciting. And I was on a show that took place in Kansas, and I would go on these press tours, and people would be like, what's this fantasy of a gay person living in Kansas, And I think that it's important, because we are so divided right now, to show that we're actually, humanity is about connection and finding each other, and it happens in the middle of the country and on the coasts of the country too. And I think I'm happy to be a part of something that says that Cleveland is where people are, and people are people. Well said.
Ben, I have a different question for you.
Okay.
Because your character, to me at least, feels like the emotional spine of the film. And for your first acting role, that's a lot of weight. I'm curious how you navigated that, but also maybe leaned on folks like these guys right next to you who maybe have had more experience and just really found place to play and have a fun time with the shoot.
Yeah, so the role as Charlie has a ton of emotional traits. And yes, there are some that kind of came natural to me, but there are also many that I was like, how in the world do I put this in a role? So off camera or not on set, I would just be asking everyone in the film, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And after like talking to them and they were giving me great advice, it really helped a lot to know how to do that and have like, I don't know how to say it's like these Hollywood kind of legends, I would say, give me this advice, and it sure does work. I would say that. So yeah.
Well said. A few more from the audience, and then the floor is yours. Jeff, one of the things I love about your character and the moments you share with your scene partner is there isn't this overt queer caricature that comes forward. You all seem like very much three-dimensional people in the moments that you have. I'm curious how you found that on the page, and maybe how you all found moments to elevate that, as well with working with the directors that you have.
Yeah, you know, I think that any character, you know, you just see this, you know, you don't get to see an entire character's life. It would be an exhausting film if you did. And so I think the job of an actor is to add specificity and to add truth and authenticity, so that even if you don't see all of the details and you don't get all of the spreadsheets of what's going on in their life, you should be presenting yourself in a way that makes it seem like there's a well of other things going on there too. And I think that Marissa and Keith, who are the directors and the writers, had worked really hard on that in the script to begin with, but then also allowed us to sort of to add our own little shading to it and add our own little coloring to it to make it feel, you know, real. That's what acting is, feeling real. I do it.
I watched him do it, by the way. On my first day there, I went to set before I was working, and you were shooting with Rory the scene with the appraisal of the big fake statue. And I watched you two block it and rehearse it, and then add some improvisation. You kind of approved it through, you kind of came up with a bit, approved it through Marissa and Keith. I was watching you work and watching all that you said be actualized, and like Ben, I was taking notes. It was pretty fascinating to watch. And that's all the compliments you get from me.
Santino, for you, Gary navigates a lot of the sort of like socio-political themes or ideas of this film. Everyone has those moments, but there are some particular highlights, I think, with you. Obviously, Jeff alluded to it, the sort of moment that we find ourselves in. How did you strike that balance on set without losing the sort of nuance on that, but also trying to be present and showcase what was really ideated there for those characters?
I mean, what Jeff said is, I think, also true for my character, that Keith and Marissa really did the heavy lifting for that, and I got to kind of breathe life into it. Somebody who is dealing with issues of the past that actually didn't involve him and yet now do. And how do you navigate that in trying to do the best you can? And what's so great about that premise is it's so uncomfortable and so relatable and fun to watch, as it was fun to read, because you realized, oh gosh, there's no great way out of this, but there is a dramatic way out of it and a comedic way out of it, which is super fun. I will say what Jeff was saying too. The same was for me and Esther, who played my wife, that same thing, where we got to play with both in the lecture scene as well as the dinner scene. A lot of the stuff of a lot of improv was able. They were very welcome to letting us improvise and then sussing around it. And I think what you're trying to do is to not avoid the situation, but also not cheapen it. Is to just this character is trying to find the best way forward. as a normal, as a well-meaning person would do, which is very Cleveland from my experience. Yeah, I'd say that's.
Mark, my last question is for you. You're my favorite Tom Hanks, just so you know. Just because the other one isn't in the room. But you have such impactful small moments where you end up on screen, so much levity, so much fun. But it felt like it was also relatable to some of the larger than life characters that can exist in these small cities or towns. Can you just talk about, like, was it something where you were in Cleveland and you saw someone that inspired some of the more outlandish moments, what have you, or is that just totally baked into a different place for you?
So, obviously, I was cast because I'm the host of Antiques Roadshow, or was, but I got to work with John Lovitz, and the script calls for the town character to be a little bit cheesy, a little bit jerky, as you can see, and while my wife would probably say that wasn't a stretch for me, it wasn't particularly comfortable, and also acting in general was not comfortable. I've been a host my whole life. I haven't been an actor, and so on the way in on my first day to set, I was pretty overwhelmed. And I'm riding in the van with John Lovitz, who I'm a big fan of, and had met previously, and they kind of tried to say, "Hi, John, I met you on blah, blah, blah," but I was sitting behind him in the van. He was like, didn't even acknowledge me. I'm like, this is going to be a very, very long day. But then when I got to the green room area, and I saw him in the corner, and he started to run his lines, I took every piece of bravery I had and said, I'm in the scene with you, do you want to run together? And he pulled up a chair and said, yes, and we did it several times, and it wasn't like he was giving me notes, but he was giving me permission, like telling me just to go there even more, have fun, I've got you, without saying that so much, but really was just so generous. And then when we got on set, I had these laugh lines, and usually that's what we expect John Lovitz to have, but he was so collaborative and so helpful to me to put me at peace, let me take for me some chances to kind of play that jerk vibe a little more, and I have to say that he made it so much more accessible for me as a novice in an arena that I wasn't comfortable in, and I'm glad it showed up. And I'm forever grateful to him, even though he may never acknowledge me again. You never know with John if he's doing a bit or being John. You're just never sure when one starts and one ends. And I kind of like being off center with him with that. It was great.
A fine line to walk. All right, audience, floor is yours.